Hello, class. All right, due to our continued snowfall and cancellations, we're going to do zoo careers a little bit differently. So I'm going to go ahead and do a recording for you today. And there's going to be a homework assignment associated with it up on Sakai. So if you have any questions, please let me know. We can touch on this stuff a little bit more when we're in person again. I just feel like we need to continue forward with our semester or else we are never going to get anywhere. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask so that you can do the homework properly. All right, so let's look at careers in zoos and aquariums. So for starters, non-animal associated positions. There are plenty of them, right? You have to manage your people with human resources. There's volunteer management. Most zoos have a pretty decent volunteer base. A lot of times it's majority going to be like high school age, junior high age kids, and then you normally do try to see some adult volunteer management as well. Your finance, maintenance department, security, right, development, guest services, retail, your gift shops, your food, all of that stuff. All that's very important for your zoos in order to continue to attract people, to figure out how to attract people, to keep your employees happy, to continue the development and growth of your zoo. So there are plenty of jobs associated with zoos and aquariums that are not specifically animal-based. So there's a couple of these are able to be a foot in the door kind of job. So like guest services, if you're able to get a job at a zoo, even though it's not an animal-based job, nothing wrong with that. It's a foot in the door. If they see how hard of a worker that you are, it can definitely lead to a different position in the zoo that you are really wanting to have. So don't be afraid of getting jobs at zoos that aren't the dream job. It's a foot in the door. It's a way to start your career there. So non-animal associated positions, don't frown upon them. They are definitely necessary. All right, animal keeper. It's the one everybody knows about and wants, right? So you are going to be providing direct care to your animals, food prep, continuing, keeping up the exhibit, all of that fun stuff. You might end up assisting veterinarians. You're definitely going to be training. In today's zoo world, you will absolutely be training. Daily enrichment is very, very important. There's normally going to be a list for enrichment that you as a keeper are going to have to rotate through so that your animals have proper, different, changing enrichment every single day. You also, as a keeper, you don't just get to deal with the animals anymore. The days of where you are just a keeper for the animals are now gone, right? You have to be able to interact with the guests. You have to convey the conservation messages as to why we have these animals, why are they here, what's important to have them here, how can we conserve their wild populations, all of that. You have to be able to convey all of that information to the public. So as a keeper, you are a public figure now. All right, aquarist, same general responsibilities as an animal keeper, right? It's just going to be specifically in an aquarium. So you're going to be taking care of the animals, food prep, talking to guests, assisting veterinary care where needed. You're just going to be towards water chemistry and the management of the substance these animals actually live in. So you're not just caring for an exhibit, you're actually caring for something that's very, very crucial to their life and their well-being. So you have to make sure your nitrates, ammonia, all of that, all your water chemistry has to be good. So you're gonna go a little more in depth with water chemistry and the management of that, filtration systems. That's going to be a big deal with you as an aquarist. And we actually do have one of our ZooSci graduate students who decided she wanted to go into aquarium work and stuff. And she's funny. She always talks about how, she managed to break down and rebuild a filtration system, and this is how it works. This is what it does, and this, that, and the other. So it's a particular set of skills that's kind of important. So if it's something that interests you, definitely talk to us. We can get you down in the crayfish lab. All right, head keeper. So this is a supervisor position to an extent, right? You're going to help schedule the keepers. So you're the head keeper. You're going to be in charge of a group of people. If it's a larger zoo, it's going to be just a section of people. If it's a smaller zoo, it might be the entire zookeeping staff. A lot of these positions may be their own, might be a small section of people. So as we keep moving forward, think about whether this position would be for, what it would be for a large zoo compared to a small zoo. Right, so in charge of scheduling, acquiring equipment and materials necessary for the day-to-day, right? So you're going to be letting people know, do you need more snake hooks? Do you need more food supplies? Do you need hose nozzles? All of that kind of stuff, right? You're going to provide guidance to the curators on what's going on with your animals. Relief animal keeper as necessary. So if your keepers get sick, you're going to be able to roll right on into your part of the zoo and know how to take care of everybody that's there. So you're kind of like this major league swing keeper where needed. Right, so that's a pretty darn good position to be in if you want to be a keeper. It's a supervisor spot. You still get to be hands-on with animals. You just have more responsibilities. All right, taxon-specific curators. So as a taxon-specific curator, you're going to manage a specific taxa. So what that means is you're going to be in charge of the mammals or the reptiles and amphibians. So it's going to be a specific group of animals that you are in charge of. All right, so prepare operation protocols. So these things called SOPs. These are going to be your standard operating procedures. You're going to be in charge of creating those kinds of protocols, right? So you make the rules for everybody to follow with those specific animals. So this is normally going to be something where someone has a mammal-specific background with whatever your education was, so that you have the knowledge to make these types of protocols, right? You're going to manage those specific staff individuals. So sometimes you might have staff that potentially might bounce between a couple different departments depending on where all of your different mammals are located, where all your different reptiles are located. So you might have a wider, diverse group of people that you're managing. And then you're going to definitely get into managing some of the budgets and the different programs for the specific taxa. Right. Anyway. All right. The registrar. It's just like the registrar for West Liberty's campus, right? So you're going to be managing daily records. You're going to be managing acquisition and disposition of animals. So acquisition is us getting an animal, acquiring an animal. Disposition is us not disposing, but we are displacing an animal somewhere else. Right, so acquisition, disposition is getting in new and or moving animals onto a new facility. All right, you're going to be in charge of the permitting. So I get us our USDA permits. Mindy over at the zoo does the AZA accreditation. She does USDA, migratory bird. She's going to be that person that's in charge of the different permitting over there. So it depends on what animals you house, where you're at, what all the legalities of the animals that you have on site. But there are plenty of permits, which we will go over way down the road. Right, providing data to conservation program managers. So one of the ways we do this is something called ZIMS. So it's Zoological Information Management System. Most zoos, if not all zoos that are AZA accredited at least, use ZIMS. So all the information about your animals, whether it's medication, feeding, all of that kind of information, their weights, everything goes into ZIMS. They get a ZIMS ID number. It's just like a social security number. It's going to follow that animal around wherever that animal goes, so that all of that information is trackable. We know what's going on. We know genetic information, right? So we can provide all of that information to conservation programs. So we know we can breed this animal with that animal because the genetics are different, or we know this animal has bred before successfully, so we might try it here, that kind of thing. So very, very important. So we do not use ZIMS. ZIMS is actually very expensive, so it's a little too expensive for us to do right now. So that's our version of ZIMS is animal care software. So that's why it's so important for us to use that. All right, curator of behavioral husbandry. This is a fun one. All right, so you manage environmental enrichment programs. So it's behavioral husbandry. So anything between training, stressed out animals, stereotypical behavior, you're going to be working with that. So, and it's not just strictly animal based, right? You have to make sure your keeping staff understands how to work with your animals, understands the different behavioral aspects of all of your animals. So if the tiger keeps pacing back and forth in front of their glass, maybe we need to start enriching them in some way to try and get rid of that stereotypical behavior. Pacing isn't something we necessarily want to see. So behavioral husbandry, very fun science to get into. It could be a very fun job. You get to help with a lot of different enrichment ideas and to help keep your animals as mentally and physically healthy as possible with this job. This is another one of those jobs too. In a larger zoo, it could be one of a few different behavioral husbandry positions. You could be behavioralist over the whole zoo. You could be behavioral husbandrist of just reptiles. So larger zoo compared to small zoo, you could be over just a section compared to the entire zoo. All right, curator of exhibits. So it's basically what it sounds like. You're going to be assisting in the design, construction, maintaining of all of your different exhibits. So the graphics that go outside of exhibits. So we've all seen zoo signage. So you're going to assist with that as well. Placement of the signage, where are people going to be walking through? Where is it best placed so that they actually look at this and read it and interact with it? Right. So you're going to be creating what people are going to be seeing, what the animals are going to be living in. So you need to understand people, and you need to understand the life history of your animal to know what they need, to know what they'll most likely actually utilize in an exhibit. What will give them the best enrichment? Are your keepers able to change up the design a little bit, or is it going to be stagnant? So pretty fun job if you have a creative mind and willingness to learn about all the different species that you'd be working with. All right, curator of horticulture. All right, so you're going to assist with exhibits designs where the plants are concerned. You need to know whether plants are safe for animals to eat. Are they toxic? Are they not? The zoo grounds in general, where the public can walk, you're also going to be in charge of that. So the picture on the left there, you're seeing just a public walkway. Browse collection, which is the picture on the right. You got a little guy there eating some browse. So there's a browse collection on, can't say all, but most zoo grounds, where you have edible plants that keepers can go and chop limbs off of and that kind of thing, and animals can then eat these things, and we can place them up high, down low, use them in education programs, that kind of thing, so that we have healthy enrichment food that was naturally grown and freshly cut for them to eat. So browse is very, very important. So when you're this curator of horticulture, you got to know your plants, you got to know how to keep them alive, you need to know how to ID things properly. That way you can have the most variety and the most bang for your buck, so to speak, with the plants that you have on grounds. All right. Curator of education. All right, this can be a fun job too. All right, creates and presents zoo education programs. So you might actually be leading some of these programs, just like this gentleman on the bottom left. You're going to be in charge of your zoo education staff. So you're going to be designing the programs that these individuals then give to public as well. And then you're going to also assist in the graphics that these education programs may possibly use that will be sitting outside of your different exhibits and that kind of thing as well. So a lot of programming, you have to think it's not just kids. Most people think about the kids first, at least. So yes, you have a lot of programming about children, but you also do have the responsibility of educating your adults as well, and getting them to come into your zoo and learn, or being able to go do outreach programs with them as well. So on zoo grounds, off zoo grounds, it all falls under this curator of education. All right, science specific positions. So little list here. This is not the only science-related positions in zoos. This is just a small list of them, right? So nutritionist, gotta have proper healthy diets. So a nutritionist is very good to have. Dr. Greathouse actually got his doctorate in nutrition. So he's a very good person to talk to about different diets and that kind of thing. Epidemiologist, pathologist, a field biologist, a geneticist, reproductive physiologist, all very important, all necessary for zoos. Not all zoos are going to have all these different positions open. The larger the zoo, the more likely most of these will be in existence for the zoo. Smaller zoos, you might have someone there that's going to be both a field biologist and maybe a pathologist, nutritionist, something like that. You're going to end up combining jobs, or you may not have that position available at all with that zoo just because they don't do that kind of research there. So depends on the zoo. If it's something you're interested in and want to go do, you definitely want to start, looking at zoos and what they actually do. Are they the head of, helping create different diets? Then you might want to do, if you're interested in nutrition, you might want to go to that zoo. So just depends on the zoo, depends on the size, depends on what you want to do. Plenty of positions opens that are science-based. All right, veterinarian. So the veterinarian is going to manage the actual animal care program for the zoo. So the animal care program itself is exactly what do you do in this situation with this specific species of animal. So there's an animal care protocol for veterinarians to be in charge of. So, if the kangaroo does this, or if there's a pregnant mama kangaroo, that kind of thing, there's specific protocols that are in play that AZA specifically will look at. So your zoo veterinarian is going to be in charge of all of those different protocols and programmings. Quarantine programs, definitely super important. There are very specific rules with quarantine. So your veterinarian is going to be in charge of that. And then your actual care to the animals, where you're doing surgery and that kind of thing. The very hands-on needed care is what your veterinarian is going to be doing. Where there's higher end drugs, if you're, taking an animal down like what you see here with the kangaroo, your vet is going to be involved. So chemical restraint is what that would be. All right, so that is different from a veterinary technician. So a vet tech is going to be very involved. You're going to work alongside the vet, but you're going to be the person that's doing analysis of different tests. You're going to be prepping the animals, assisting where needed with all of the different care. You might be able to go and give vaccinations. You may be able to go and give different medications and that kind of thing, but you're not going to be the one performing surgery. You are more of the assistant to the vet. So it's just like standard vet techs for cats and dogs. These are just going to be more specialized with zoo animals. Right. So as a vet tech, you're also going to be the one in charge of the actual records that are going in from everything that's been done with the animals. So again, very important. So they're going to be working alongside with ZIMS as well, putting all that information in there so it follows the animals along through their life. All right. So speaking of vet, I want to make sure we understand animal health versus animal welfare, because we're going to be hearing these terms a lot this semester. So animal health is going to be primarily pertaining to veterinary animal care. So the health of the animal, the overall, is the animal sick versus healthy? Is the animal strong and vibrant, or is it just laying there and looking, decrepit? So animal health is the veterinary side of care. Animal welfare is going to be that physiological, mental, psychological kind of thing. We associate welfare with the extra. There's a lot of debate with the welfare aspect of animals in today's world. So do we need to provide things like reptiles enrichment? That's a welfare question. So welfare and health, two very different things. One's more veterinary centered and the other is the overall psychological and well-being of that animal. How happy is the animal? All right, onward. General curator or deputy director, they can go by different names. All right, so this is going to supervise all animal related personnel. So all of your other different curators, your zookeepers, it's everybody who's below this position. So we're climbing up the ladder of who's in charge of the zoo as we go along. So supervise all personnel, coordinates veterinary care with your veterinarians, arranges the acquisition and dispositions. Remember, that's us getting in or moving out animals. All right, you're gonna be in charge of your program budgets, developing ICPs, animal management protocols, that kind of thing. So you're gonna help, like the image down below here, you're gonna assist in maybe designing enclosure spaces and work with people for that. You're gonna work, like I said, with your vets. You're gonna work with a whole world of people in the zoo. So it's more responsibility, more knowledge that you need to know. So you're in charge of a lot more as the general curator. All right, so director or CEO. So this is what Dr. Greathouse is for Ogilvy. All right, he's going to supervise all personnel. You're going to manage the cumulative zoo budgets. So everything over the zoo, whether it's for the gift shops, whether it's for just general maintenance budgets for, animal keeping, you name it, they're in charge of the zoo budgets. You're going to serve as that public face to the zoo. So you're going to be that person a lot of times when you see news stories, it might be the director of the zoo. Liaison for fundraising, government affairs. So you're going to be definitely going out into different public events and talking with people, maybe trying to talk with donors for the zoos, that kind of thing. And then the master plan for a zoo, you're going to be in charge of the growth and development of that zoo. Are you going to try and expand? Do you need to update different exhibits to continue fitting AZA regulations, all of that stuff? So you are in charge of the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak, as the director of the zoo. All right, other jobs that can be within the zoo. So zoo societies, so these are different fundraising branches of some institutions. They don't all have societies. So may have a supervisory role over some employees, just kind of depends. So things like capital campaigns, trying to maybe get people to donate for a brand new exhibit or for a specific conservation cause, that kind of thing. All right, AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, right? So this is a membership organization. If you guys have ever gone with families and had like a family pass, that's an AZA pass. So it's an accrediting body. Less than 10% of USDA licensed exhibitors are AZA. So roughly 240 between COVID. I haven't looked and checked the numbers. We've had some new facilities open during COVID, which is crazy. When we've had some potentially need to shut down. So this number has probably changed at this point. But a couple years back, we were at 240 zoos and aquariums that were AZA accredited. All right. Through the year, about 175 million annual visitors go to different zoos and aquariums across the country. All right, so AZA, that golden standard. So we are not going to go over all of these individually by any means, but these are just committees and different board of governor bodies, that kind of thing that AZA has so that their accreditation standards are the best, right? So animal health, animal welfare, remember there's two different things there. So veterinary care wise, animal health, overall welfare, is there enough space? Is there enough enrichment? Are the animals actually living their best life? Aquarium affairs, diversity, trends, development, all of that. There's different governing bodies that are going to go over what AZA standards are going to cover for all these different things. So these, you can potentially work at the zoo and be a part of these. You definitely, if you work at the zoo, are going to have to follow whatever these committees decide to make as the rules. All right, collection management programs. So these we're going to go over one at a time. All right, so don't worry about the acronyms. We're going to break them down. But these are different management programs that are associated with AZA specifically, and they basically help with the conservation and growth of the animals that we care for in our facilities. So, SAG, Scientific Advisory Groups. So there's different ones. Ooh, hold on. All right, so ambassador animals, we're going to go over more in depth what ambassador animals are, but more or less they're animals that are utilized. A lot of times associated with education programs. Animal ambassadors are those animals in the public eye that speak out for their species. All right, so scientific advisory groups, you have a lot of different ones. There's avians, or avian would be bird. So you can have reptilians, you'll have behavior, reproductive and endocrinology, going green. So how can the zoos help, conserve the planet, that kind of thing. So there's different types of scientific advisory groups that work towards bettering the specific topic of that group. The next one is a taxon advisory group, also known as a TAG. All right, so these develop regional collection plans, which are RCPs. There is a lot of acronyms, guys. So many acronyms in zoo world. All right, so the tags develop regional collection plans to guide management of small populations and conservation actions pertaining to specific taxonomic groupings. So your tags are going to consist of rules and regulations for specific animal groups. Right, so if you, we're going to have a homework assignment associated with this down the road. You're going to end up looking up the different tags for different animal groups. And you're going to tell me about them, tell me what you can find on there. So these develop animal care manuals for your zookeepers to follow, and the public can find them. You just got to know where to look. They can be a little tricky to hunt down. So taxon advisory groups help develop animal care manuals as well. All right, SSPs, Species Survival Plan. So this is a population management program that was developed in 1981 by this gentleman down here, Dr. Conway. All right, so this is still, you'll still see signage in zoos today. They're talking about this kind of shifting away and going to SAFE program, but there's so much instilled in SSPs. I'm not sure if they will truly go away or not. So we're going to continue to teach about them. All right, so what does an SSP do? Sorry. SSP, you're going to be, thus far, they've been primarily focused on your big, charismatic mega vertebrates. So your pandas, your tigers, the big flashy animals, they tend to be fuzzy, right? The goal for these is 90% genetic diversity over 100 years. So we want the most diverse, best genetics that we can have for the animals that we have in our facilities. Currently, there's over 400 species managed by SSPs. So who helps? All right, so more acronyms, guys. Wildlife Conservation and Management Committee used to be what regulates the SSPs. They had a change. So it's now the APM, it's the Animal Population Management Committee. I apologize, my dog is barking in the background. All right, so WCMC is now the APM. All right, so these guys, what their purpose is it supports the development, promotion, evaluation, and management of the cooperative animal program. So things like your SSPs and what now is coming up as the SAFE program as well. So you're going to be helping regulate exactly what guidelines we follow, how to best continue the genetic lines of these animals, that kind of thing. So amongst SSP, there are 3 different groups, right? Think of it like a red light. There's green, yellow, and red. So the green, the goals are 90% diversity for 100 years or 10 generations. All right, full participation is required. So if you are a zookeeper, a zoo director, all the way from bottom to top, you have to participate in an SSP that is green if you have these animals in your zoo. All right, so must participate in green. Green is a go. All right, non-AZA member participation must be approved by the APM, that group we just talked about. All right, have to be approved. So picture associated, that's a ring-tailed lemur. So if you have ring-tailed lemurs, you are going to be in participation with the green SSP. Now, there are exceptions to the rules for this, right? You can have an animal, maybe you have a female that is elderly and she is too old to breed now. So you can advocate for that animal that she not actively participate in the SSP any longer for breeding purposes because she is too old and it is a risk to her. So there are certain positions where you can advocate for the animal if it's in the best welfare of that animal. All right, a yellow SSP, right? So populations of at least 50 animals, so 50 or more for yellow SSPs, not capable of 90% diversity for 100 years or 10 generations. So we're not there yet, right? Full participation is not mandatory here. It's definitely recommended, right? Non-AZA member participation does not have to be approved. So say maybe we started getting leaf-tailed gecko like this guy here, and we wanted to try and assist in a yellow SSP with a zoo that currently is holding these animals. We potentially could do that with the zoo right now because we would not have to get approval from the APM. We just need approval with that zoo. All right, a red SSP. Oh, the panda. All right, so populations of less than 50 individuals. So it's not a currently sustainable population within our facilities. All right, so less than 50 individuals don't have a great genetic pool to pull from, right? So participation is not required. Again, you should try to go for it. It's only going to help better the animals in your care if you can help assist in gaining the genetics that we need. All right, so no APM approval needed as well. So we could also help participate here at West Liberty in a red SSP potentially. So less than 50 individuals. So it could be a critically endangered species, but we don't have the number of individuals that we need to have that 90% or more genetic diversity, that kind of thing. So your animals could be on, you know, from least concern to critically endangered and be any one of these different SSP colors. So it depends on the population and what genetics we have for where they land on the stoplight of SSPs. All right, so why am I talking about these with careers? There's people that are in charge of leading the SSP. You know, overall, amongst individual zoos, you're gonna have to work with these SSP programs. So definitely have potential jobs, specifically with SSPs, definitely as keepers and stuff, you're gonna be following SSPs. All right, AZA safe conservation programs, as I mentioned before. So when they first started off, there was 100 species nominated. Right, so these are the red wolf pictured, cute little guys. So the safe program's relatively new. The indigo snake is on there. There's a lot of different species on there. There'll be homework assignments associated with this so that you guys can go and learn a little bit more about it. But it's still focused a lot on those big megafauna, charismatic animals, but they are starting to get more of the less charismatic things on there. So you're going to see more invertebrates, more reptiles, more amphibians, not just the gigantic mammals that everybody loves. Same thing, SSPs are starting to go with that a whole lot more. A lot of things are you just get a lot more funding for those big, mega charismatic fauna. So trying to get more involved with the less charismatic animals as we move forward with the safe conservation program. All right, stud books. All right, so this is a registry or a pedigree. So if you've heard like pedigree for dogs, that kind of thing, it's the same idea. It's just for these different exotic animals that we have in our zoos. All right, so it's going to understand the history of each individual. We're going to understand the genetics. These are crucial for the development of SSPs. All right, these are international and regional. So we can have stud books specifically just for the United States. We can have stud books that are international, they're around the world. So we could work with different facilities from Germany, different facilities from where, you know, pick a continent. So stud books are pretty cool. You as a standard keeper could absolutely hop on and be the person that's in charge of a stud book for whatever animal you are truly interested in, whatever animals that you've grown to specialize with. But you have to be willing to do this job. It's not normally like an extra boost in pay type job. You're just going to volunteer to be the stud book person for white-naped cranes, for the indigo snake, for whoever it is that you would want to do this for. So if that's something that interests you, it can be a definite part of your job. It's not always going to be something you're going to get extra pay for. It's just something you do because it's what you do. All right. This is the last slide, guys. So how to get a job in the zoo or aquarium. This is what our homework is a little bit going to be based on. So there's different sites here for you to look at. So you want to have the bachelor's degree in some form of natural science, right? So you guys are in a very good start. Volunteer, intern, part-time positions, all very important, all very good experience for you. All right, and then there's the list of relevant organizations there below. So, all right, guys, this is my first recording of the semester. Hopefully we don't have to have too many of these, but there we are. If you have any questions, please shout out. Like I said, I'll go over a few different things more in depth once we're in person and I can actually see you so you can ask questions. But I hope that it all made sense to you. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your snow day.